If you thought that the departure of Donald Trump meant that professional sports would take a breather from being painfully woke, politicized, and obsessed with pushing a progressive agenda, well, I've got news for you, and it ain't great. Major League Baseball have turned into Major League suck-ups to the Biden administration, backing in the White House in a protest against changes to voting laws in Georgia that the left say targets minorities and the poor and makes it harder for them to vote. As Joe Biden told ESPN, the sports network in America, "Come on, you're going to close the polling place at 5 o'clock when people are just getting off work? This is all about keeping working folks and ordinary folks that I grew up with from being able to vote," the president said. He even said, "This is Jim Crow on steroids, what they're doing in Georgia." Now, Biden made his remarks in the context of encouraging Major League Baseball, which has, it seems, followed his advice to move their annual All-Star game out of Georgia in protest of the laws. Other local companies have also joined in the criticism. The CEO of Atlanta-headquartered Delta Airlines, Ed Bastian, said that the new voting law was, quote, unacceptable and does not match Delta's values. Coca-Cola, also headquartered in Atlanta, had much the same message, though again, apparently they didn't read the bill. Quote, "We are disappointed in the outcome of the Georgia voting legislation," said CEO James Quincy. "Our focus is now on supporting federal legislation that protects voting access and addresses voter suppression across the country." Now, here's the thing. They're all saying the law suppresses the vote, but the law does no such thing. In fact, the legislation passed in Georgia makes it, in many cases, easier to vote. As the Wall Street Journal reported, on Election Day in Georgia, anyone under the new law in line by 7 p.m. gets a ballot. The new law requires an extra Saturday of voting while specifying early voting hours. The minimum is 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., but counties may run 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. in metropolitan areas. You might not notice a change, explained the Georgia Public Broadcasting System, but they said elsewhere you will have an extra weekend day and your weekday early voting hours will likely be longer. Now, okay, that's the Wall Street Journal. If you don't believe them, how about the Washington Post? Their fact checker Glenn Kessler, himself no friend of conservatives, awarded Biden a 4 Pinocchios rating. That's his highest rating for his claim that Georgia was restricting voting rights, saying, quote, "Not a single expert we consulted who has studied the law understood why Biden made this claim, as this was the section of the law that expanded voting for many people." Kessler went on, "Somehow Biden managed to turn that expansion into a restriction aimed at working people, calling it, quote, among the most outrageous parts of the law. There is no evidence," the Washington Post said, "that this is the case." Anyway, I'm sure all these woke CEOs are well-intentioned and consistent when it comes to voting rights and human rights, even if they got this one wrong, right? Well, not so fast. Coca-Cola, so committed to voting rights in Georgia, was called out last year for lobbying Congress to weaken a bill banning the importation of goods from slave labor made in China's Xinjiang region. In August last year, Delta Airlines cut a deal to add more flights to, you guessed, China. And Major League Baseball? Well, here's the Global Times earlier this week. Major League Baseball will continue to be aired on China's online streaming platform Tencent Video, it was announced Wednesday, despite the diplomatic spat between the two countries, the U.S. and China. Tencent Video will offer video viewers Major League Baseball spring training, the regular season, the All-Star game, and of course the playoffs. And why wouldn't they? Baseball has already invested so much in China. According to this report from 2018, Major League Baseball had made a major push to expand into more Chinese schools, colleges, and universities. More than 40 new baseball facilities have been built in China since April 2017. And as part of the streaming deal with Major League Baseball, Tencent will broadcast the league's youth baseball and development events. Now, guys, the hypocrisy here is manifest. No one who hasn't been living under a rock for the last decade could fail to know about China's abuses of its Uyghur and Falun Gong populations, its attacks on Christians and dissidents, its steamrolling of democracy in Hong Kong, and its blatant military aggressiveness. But none of that matters to the new breed of woke CEO who is happy to suck up to the Biden administration by grandstanding about voting rights or whatever the cause du jour is, while making money hand over fist in a market run by a regime that happily relies on slave labor and which makes no secret of wanting to eventually take America down. The great lie of our age has been that by doing business with China, the West would also export its values. Turns out it's the other way around. We've been importing them, and it has to stop.